Question: what does it mean to be disoriented? We have a sense of what we mean when we use the word, but maybe there's more to it, especially now. Let's talk about it. Let's begin by joining an unsettled people, which is appropriate because we are so unsettled ourselves, especially in this strange and unpredictable season. The children of God in the Old Testament really knew how to wear out the soles of sandals, didn't they? The journey from Egypt, where they were enslaved to Pharaoh, to the promised land of Canaan took 40 years. 40 years and about 250 miles of lots of circuitous walking. During that time, elderly died and children were born. It fell to the multitasking prophet Moses to keep tabs on all those numbers, which, not coincidentally, is the name of the fourth book of the Bible, which tells us some details about their journey. It is in the book of Numbers where we learn that whenever the whole enormous procession of Israelites needed to set up camp, God gave them specific instructions about which group should camp where. The tabernacle, a portable worship center 150 feet long by 75 feet wide, was the pulse of the community. It was to occupy the center of the large camp, and the 12 tribes of Israel were to camp around the 4 sides of it, 3 tribes on each side. This way, the worship of the Lord remained the stable, predictable constant of their unstable, unpredictable lives. On the east side of the tabernacle, we find the tribe of Judah. Why is that significant? Because Christ will come from the tribe of Judah. The book of Revelation calls Christ the Lion of the tribe of Judah. So the tribe of Christ is camped to the east. The word east is a synonym for the word Orient. When we speak of the Orient, we're referring to countries in the Far East like China, Japan, Singapore, North and South Korea. The word Orient gives us words like oriented, orientation. Other prophets in the Old Testament will refer to the coming Christ as the Orient or the East, as when Malachi said that he would rise up from the east like a sun of righteousness. So notice what's happening. To be with Christ is to be oriented rightly, to be easted rightly, pointed toward the morning star, toward the Sun of Righteousness. What does it mean, then, to be disoriented? We have a sense of what we mean when we use the word, but maybe there's more to it, especially now. Now, in these turbulent months, to be disoriented means not to be without Christ, who said, "I am with you always," but to be without the Christ-centered rhythms of the local church. For so many, the rhythms of the local church form the axis around which a nourishing and well-lived life revolve. Daily prayer, weekly communion, regular confession, yearly feasts and fasts. These rhythms form the IV tube through which God sends saving medicines into the soul and mind and even body. And yet, to be disoriented right now does not mean to be entirely without direction, without structure, without a plan. It just means to be without a few of our usual routines, our familiar pieties. In fact, there are godly ways to be disoriented. There are healthy ways to be unsettled. So that just like the Israelites of old, the worship of the Lord can remain the stable, predictable constant of our unstable, unpredictable lives. Here are 7 practical tips for falling apart gracefully and well. Number 1, pray. God is centered. We are not. Prayer taps us into His centering. To be away from what we're used to in the local church does not need to translate into being away from a prayer life. prayer is a confession that only God knows the best way out of this. Every Christ follower needs a simple and daily prayer life to connect with their Savior. Prayer is a key to mental and emotional fitness. Number 2, acknowledge but do not trust feelings. When our usual routines are frustrated, emotions swing all over the place. There are 2 ways to handle that. We can have our actions follow our feelings, which can have tragic consequences for everything from our eating habits to our relationships with other unsettled people. Or we can guide our feelings to follow our actions, which means we do the right thing, even if it's hard, and notice how our feelings follow. When we return good for evil, for example, we notice that feelings of goodness follow. Number 3, when unsettled, don't make big changes. There's an old expression, never make a change on the day of a triumph or the day of a tragedy. When we are disoriented, we don't always think clearly, which makes us more vulnerable to desperate or short-sighted decisions. The impatient part of us tries to force life back into some semblance of normal. Instead, during turbulent times, it may be better to settle into a place of prayerful and stable patience while God does His work within us and around us. Number 4, try to be a healing presence. As we see chaos unfold around us, we are also seeing a fresh wave of me-first-itis. My way, my preferences, my priorities, my megaphone. But there is nothing healing or calming about selfishness. What if, instead of either contributing to the unrest or cocooning oneself off from it entirely, we committed to becoming a healing presence for the persons we encounter throughout the day? Imagine if, through gracious words and peaceful actions, we can become a lullaby for others during these fussy times. Being a healing presence means no gossip, no slander, no complaining, no negative talk. Satan luxuriates on a loose tongue. Number 5, walk the path you can, and don't worry about the path you can't. The great tragedy of some who cannot have the local church just the way they want it is that they then use that deprivation to have no Christ-centered life at all. But everything we need for a Christ-centered life is still in our lives right now. We still have available to us the rhythms of daily prayer, fairly regular Holy Communion in most of our churches, regular confession, and the yearly cycle of fasts and feasts. We still have each other. Yes, it feels different than usual right now, but it is all still available to us. Number 6, stop practicing social distancing and only practice physical distancing. Let's be precise with our language. Social distancing is a disastrous and egocentric retreat into oneself. During our current crisis, we need each other more than ever. We need to see another face, hear another voice, even if over a computer screen. We can enjoy much fellowship, nourish many relationships, while merely observing physical distancing. But we can't do any of that if we are social distancing. Number 7, focus on the blessings we have and not on the blessings we want. There is a feeling in the air right now of panicked suffocation, as our usual freedoms and routines are being stirred and shaken. But to obsess over the uncomfortable is to miss all the good that the Lord is up to. On her face covering, one churchgoer sharpied the numbers 141:3, which stands for Psalm 141, verse 3. Set a watch, O Lord, before my mouth and a protective door about my lips. Conscious of her tendency toward loose talk, she is using the discomfort on her face to tend to some healing on her soul. It may be impossible not to feel disoriented right now, but there are godly ways to be disoriented, and there are healthy ways to be unsettled. Just like the Israelites of old, we don't know how long we'll be traveling this road, how many sandals we'll wear through before we're done. But we do know that we have everything we need right now to fall apart gracefully and well.